Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. As I said earlier, we're on Facebook Live as well. We may have some people checking in and out of that. I'm going to try to keep this, always try to keep this to an hour. I figure if I can't give you enough information and for you to be able to make a decision whether or not you want to go to a follow-up, or if it's something that you're interested in an hour, then I'm not doing a good job. I'd like to just give a couple pieces of information in terms of my background. I was a teacher and coach. I became a vice president of sales of an educational publishing company, actually 3 of them. And then I'm also a full-time real estate investor. I've taken many real estate investing classes and courses, and I'm very involved in that. I'm a deacon in my church. I am currently working on 6 flips. I've done as many as 9 flips at a time. And I'm also a licensed real estate broker. The reason for the meeting tonight is that, especially now with our situation and our economy, a lot of people are looking to be business owners or self-employed in some way or another because of the uncertainty of their jobs or of the market. So tonight we want to explore and talk about becoming self-employed versus a business owner. A lot of times people want to start their own business and then they find out that the business owns them. In other words, they're so tied to the business, there's no leverage in it. It's all about their own time and about their own productivity. But a business owner is someone that produces income from the efforts of others or systems that they implement. Now, there's nothing wrong with being self-employed. A lot of people enjoy being self-employed. They only want to worry about themselves. But know that when that self-employed person stops working, they're not making any money. If they're on vacation, they're not making money because they're only paid on their own efforts. So I want to invite you tonight to consider business ownership rather than self-employment. Oftentimes, people will start out as an employee and then move to self-employment, business owner, and eventually passive income. So if you look at, let's say someone graduated from law school, they get employed in a law firm, so they're an employee. Then they do really well, they want to open up their own law firm. So they open up their own law firm, they become self-employed because it's just them. But as that firm becomes successful, maybe they hire an assistant, other attorneys, and now all of a sudden they could be out playing golf, and maybe some of the other attorneys that they brought in that are employed now underneath their ownership, they're working during that day while they're playing golf and still getting paid. And then a passive investor. So let's say years later, they're so successful, now they just own the partnership or the law firm, and they're getting paid as the owner or passive investor without really doing any of the work themselves. So that's a typical progression. Now let's look at employees. They're working for somebody else. Someone else has determined their compensation. Someone else has determined their schedule. They're eligible for very few tax deductions, and there's no job security. We always say that job security is an oxymoron because by definition, if it's a job, it's not secured. It means you're working for somebody else that's making a determination of whether or not you're employed the next day. Now, self-employment is kind of, again, the next step up. They own their own business, but they're only compensated on their own work. They do get to set their own schedule, which is good, and they are eligible for many tax deductions. And then also they have some income security, but it's only based on their own production. They don't work, they don't get paid. As a business owner, now progressing to a business owner, now you own and operate a cash flowing entity. So it's not just your own work. You're compensated on the productivity of others or systems that you implement. You can set your own schedule. You're eligible for a ton of tax deductions, and you do have income security with multiple revenue streams. And then the passive investor, of course, they own that cash flow. They have to do very little work. They don't really even have to have a work schedule, and they're paid on the production of others, whether they work or not. They probably couldn't even stop the cash flow if they wanted to. So let's explore the self-employed model and business ownership model. There's a lot of things that people can do to start their own business. You know, I'm sure everyone's been approached by somebody that's in like a network marketing company. They might be selling juices or pills or makeup or you name it. There's about anything you can think of sold through those networks. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you look at the typical self-employed person, or if you're going to start your own, plumbing business, those are all self-employment. If you're going to go into real estate, some people become real estate investors and other people become real estate agents. And I'm going to use both agent and or broker, because in Illinois, when you first get your license, you're considered a broker. I know we might have people on the line that are watching the recording that are in other states, and when they first get their license, they're called an agent. So I'll use both of those terms interchangeably. So the typical model, if someone wanted to get into real estate as an agent or broker, they would, take classes, they would pass the test, and then they would have to work underneath somebody else's brokerage for at least 2 years, minimum 2 years in the state of Illinois. Plus, you'd have to take more classes, you'd have to pass another test to progress from there. But that's kind of typical. You're paid on your own production, which again is fine. That's better. And as we say, you're still working for somebody. You're just working for a nicer boss because you're working for yourself. So this is kind of typical how someone would use real estate to start a business. They would be self-employed. They would work. They would have the tax deductions. They'd be able to set their own schedule, but they'd only get paid on their own production. Now, to move from self-employment to business ownership in a typical model, a typical situation, you're starting with a broker, you're working under a managing broker, you're working under that managing broker, you're pretty much set into the rules and regulations of that. To move from there to self-employment, what some people do is they take that model and they just build a team underneath it. So in this example, let's say you're working for a brokerage with a 75-25 split. That means when you earn commission, 75% of that goes to you and 25% of that goes to a broker. Well, what some people do is they recruit other people to work with them. And when they do that, they'll do is get somebody that will work for less than what they're getting paid, so they can override the difference. So maybe they hire somebody in as a 65-35 split, and then they'll make the difference. They'll make 10% on everyone. So that's one way that if someone's a realtor, they may start to become a business owner, as they're starting to build a team. But there are pros and cons to that. They have to a lot of times provide leads for those team members, training, mentorship. If not, why else would they stay on that team? And you're constantly fighting for that person to stay on your team. So, but the pros are is that you don't have the overhead of the office. So that is a good thing, not having the overhead of the office, because that way, if you have a low month, you're not, coming out of pocket with all that overhead, because it's pretty typical, and that does happen a lot in a brokerage where you might have some lean months and you don't have closings or multiple closings. The other way that people work from becoming an agent to a business owner is that they'll own their own brokerage. They may buy a franchise. They have to be a managing broker, but they'll either go independent or they'll buy a franchise. And one of the things I said in the description of tonight's presentation is that this is the model I'm going to present to you. There's no franchise fees. And also you don't have to start from scratch. See, this is the route I was on my way. My plan was to get my broker's license, but I didn't want to start as self-employment. I wanted to jump right away to business ownership. So I was going to put in all the money to set up an office and then hire a managing broker. Since I couldn't be a managing broker for 2 years, I was going to hire a managing broker and work underneath that managing broker. I'd be the owner of the brokerage. I would hire a managing broker and I would work under that managing broker for at least 2 years. So that's one way for me to go about that, moving to business ownership. And that's a way that, others may think about doing that. And it wasn't until I was invited to a webinar, kind of like you're watching tonight, that Nietzsche invited me to. Nietzsche and Roland, they were owners of brokerages, and they found a better model. So I was on the way going to develop my own office and my own my own brokerage until I saw there was a model that I could just plug into and have all the advantages and not the disadvantages. So when someone's opening up their own brokerage or starting to do a franchise, I've got listed on the screen the pros and the cons. So the pro is, let's say they have a contract with an agent that's an 80-20. It means that every time one of my agents, if I owned a brokerage, every time one of my agents did a transaction, that agent would get 80% of the commission, and I, as the broker owner, would get 20% of the commission. So I would operate my business on 20% of the commission. So that's how the structure would normally be. Now, the good thing about that is, of course, I override that 20% of the gross revenues. But the cons are I can still lose people. I still have to train them. I still have to have all the expenses. But in addition to that, I might have franchise fees, office fees. You have the liability, so you have to have insurance. You got to cover yourself with insurance. A lot of managing brokers that start their own offices, they have a policy that if they get a lead, they don't even keep the lead. So people say, well, why would I give up some of my commission? Some people that own their own brokerage, they actually give up all their commission. They turn it around. Instead of them getting 80 or 100% of a deal they were going to do, they actually give it to other brokers that are in that same brokerage. And the reason they do that is, think about it. Let's say I recruited Sarah into my brokerage and she's all happy and everything, but then she sees leads coming in and I take all the best leads. I'm doing all the business. And she's like, wait a minute, I'm here, I'm working in the office. And it seems like every good lead we get, Randy, the owner, is closing on that, and I'm not. So that's why a lot of brokers, to try to attract agents, they'll say, hey, here's my policy, and they'll do it as a positive. They'll say, here's my policy. I don't do any of my own transactions. So if I get a lead into the brokerage, I give it out to my agents. Of course, it doesn't mean that I would give it out, that I gave it out to Sarah, or that I'm fair distributing those, but at least the agents know, okay, they're not taking them for themselves. They're, distributing those out. And the reason I want to emphasize that is because the business model I'm going to tell you about really eliminates the need to have to give up all the leads that you have coming in. So you have the best of both worlds. So the model that I'm talking about is the EXP Realty Agent / Broker model. And this is a way that you can fast start and you can be a business owner right away. You don't have to go through 2 years of being a broker before you can become a managing broker, and before you have to pay all that money to be able to build a team, build an organization, build a brokerage. You can start doing this stuff day one. And that's why I jumped. That's how my business model was going to be set up. But they've got all the infrastructure. It's much better than I could ever develop. They have all the technology in place, everything for someone to just plug in. And day one, they're going to be like a managing broker. They're going to get paid like a managing broker without all the managing broker expenses and liability. That's huge. That's very, very important. So if you look at their business model, you actually own and operate a cash flowing entity. You can leverage your skills and relationships. So not just leveraging your time, right? So when you start out normally as a broker or agent, you're only leveraging your time. If you have 8 hours a day, you're working for yourself, and whatever productivity you do in those 8 hours, that's it. You're leveraging your time and your sales skills. However, with this model, if I have relationships, if I know people like I knew Sarah, like I knew Nietzsche, if you know people and you invite them into the brokerage and they decide to join the brokerage, I'm leveraging my relationships. If I'm a good teacher or mentor, I'm leveraging those skills that I've built in the workplace for years, and I'm able to override commissions right from day one. Not when I open up my own brokerage, not when I have the expense of an office. From day one, you can start overriding other people that you sponsor into the brokerage. The compensation plan then is based on the productivity of not just me, but others and the systems that I implement. So I can get paid whether I'm working or not after I build my team and my organization. I can obviously set my own schedule. In my own schedule. Now, some people join this brokerage and they just still want to be self-employed, and that's great. It's a great company to work for. There's a lot of perks doing that. However, most of the people that I talk to are those people that want to move from self-employment to business owner, or they want to go right from employment, jump right to business ownership, like I did. I did not want to get into a model where I couldn't go right to business ownership right from the start. You're eligible for all kinds of tax deductions, and you have income security from multiple revenue streams, even shared revenue share that we have, and also stock ownership that we'll talk a little bit about as well. And also a new option, you can also take advantage now of a healthcare option. So if you come on to the follow-up, then we will talk more and go a little bit deeper into that, but just know that that is a possibility. Okay, so let's talk about this model. So how did EXP, how are they able to do what other companies aren't able to do and have not been doing for years and actually decades? Well, they're an industry disruptor, which means basically they're changing the industry. They're bringing something to the game that other companies have not done that. And it's allowed us now to have a path for business ownership and massive income. If you look at other industry disruptors, you look at Netflix, think about what they did to Blockbuster. So Blockbuster was king. They basically owned the DVD and movie rental business in the US. They were powerful, and Netflix came along. Blockbuster had to file for bankruptcy within 5 years. Look at what Amazon is doing to multiple retail stores. Things like, you know, stores like the mom and pop clothing stores, shoe stores, everything that you used to go in, even into a mall. A lot of the malls are closing down even. That's because of the leverage of technology. Look at the taxi service. It wasn't that long ago when your only option, you get out of the airport, either take a train, bus, or cab, and that's it. When Uber came in and Lyft came in, totally revolutionized that. All of a sudden, a company nobody had heard of are actually larger and more profitable now than any taxi service that's out there. And then also, if you look at Airbnb, it's not on here, but Airbnb is another great example that they're worth more than Hilton. Hilton hotels have been around for over 100 years. And now Airbnb in a few short years have larger revenues than Hilton hotels. That's just amazing, right? So think about now EXP. How are they doing this? They're doing it the same way these other companies. What do these companies do? They all leverage technology to change the industry. It's all technology based, all right? So as an industry disruptor, one way to find out whether or not they're really making an impact on the business, on the industry, is are people leaving established traditional models to come to this new model? And this is just a few names here that I put on here that have moved themselves, and in some cases have moved entire agencies over to this model. You have some of the top people and other agencies that have been around for years. People are coming from Keller Williams, they're coming from Remax, they're coming from Century 21. They're coming from all these companies that have been established for years and years and years. And now the new kid on the block, EXP, comes in and people are coming to them. You know, teams are coming over. So that's why I'm excited about this model and the potential here. Okay. Now, let me talk a little bit about the technology, just to give you a little taste of it. Okay. So this company developed a platform for technology where you create yourself as an avatar. And then you go into what we call the EXP world. And there's over 50 hours of training and of education every single week that you can plug into. You can go into the different departments. Instead of going to an office, you go into this virtual office, into this virtual world, and all the resources are available to you. Think about all the millions of dollars that are saved throughout the country, not having to open up a brick and mortar office on every other street corner like these other real estate offices. Just think for a minute. Think of Century 21. Think of Keller Williams. Think of Remax. Go through your neighborhood. Go through your town. Go, you know, on busy streets. See how many real estate offices there are, right? There doesn't need to be those offices. Just like Netflix took Blockbuster out of the business that used to be on every major town and almost around every strip mall there is out there. Now there's not any, right? That's happening in this industry. So people that are seeing this now and can and have the foresight and can see that this is an opportunity for them. If they plug in now, they're going to be at the top of the wave when this just comes over and all of a sudden these companies start going out of business and they all start coming to EXP. If you're in early, all those people can be on your EXP team as they flood the gates to come on over. So this is going to be a little taste of the technology, some of the things that we can do, because now it's one brokerage, it's not a franchise. So like in the state of Illinois, we have one managing broker that we can all work underneath, and we all don't have to have offices now. Just think of all that overhead that's being eliminated can now go into our pockets in the way of our commissions, our revenue share, and our stocks. So a typical franchise, they're going to have those overhead fees that I talked about for them, or overhead, but they're also going to pass those fees on to the brokers. Those fees have to be covered somewhere. So the agents or brokers in those offices, they're going to have desk fees or franchise fees. Locally, they're just confined as far as networking and so forth. They don't have a nationwide network like we do. Inconsistent growth incentives. So they've got very few or limited technology. So some of the big franchises, they may have some technology, but not nationwide that's shared, and a platform that's shared like our technology. But if you look at the EXP model, that's a model where you've got a cloud campus with no desk fees. You can work anywhere. And that's so big with COVID. Think about it. People wanting to work from home, being able to be just as productive during COVID as you were before and as you will be afterwards. Talked about the 50 hours of education. There's the real-time support that you can get 24/7. International collaboration. This company is international. It's not even local. So if you joined a brokerage, basically your scope would be local. With this, you can be local if you want, or you could be state focused, or you could be national focused, or you can even be international focused. Because I'm going to later show you some of the countries that are available for you to sponsor agents in and to do business in. So the other thing is the powerful equity opportunity. I don't know of any other brokerage where you can own part of the brokerage. I just had a closing today. Actually, the closing was yesterday, or Monday, but I got funded today. And I was with the agent on the other side. So I was the buyer's agent. I was with the seller's agent, and I talked to her about, number one, how quickly we get paid, that we can just scan the closing statement and the check, and with just a couple days, that money will be in my account, versus that, I mean, that check won't even probably get to the brokerage for a couple days. I'll actually be paid right away on that. The other thing I talked to her about is that, great, I'm going to get stock in addition to my commission. I'm also going to get stock at a discount. I'm going to buy more stock. I have the opportunity of my commission check that 5% of that commission can go towards stock at a 10% discount. So think about that. At my closing, I'm going to get stock at a 10% discount. So even if the stock stayed the same, I just made 10% on my money. All right. So revenue share. When I was going to start a business, I was going to start, or my own brokerage, I was going to start just based on this, just this one aspect that EXP has. Everything else is just over and above what I possibly could have replicated. I was going to go with a business model that was very similar to this. And here's how this works, is that when someone joins EXP, they're going to get paid on other agents, up to 4 agents that they bring in. They're going to get paid on what's called tier 1. So if you personally sponsor up to 4 brokers, you're going to override their commissions at a 3.5% level for everyone you bring in. Now, once you bring in that 5th person, you now open up the 2nd tier. And now not only are you overriding the people that you personally brought in, the 5 people you personally brought in, you're also overriding the people they brought in. So if you have 5 people on this level, now you actually override the 2nd level. So if they brought in 5 people, you would get override on their commissions at closing. And if they bring people in, as soon as you get to 10, Now you override the people they bring in. When you get to 15, you override the people they bring in. You get to 20, you override the people they bring in. 25, you override another level. When you get to 40 plus, you unlock all tiers, and you now are paid 7 tiers deep. Now, that might not mean a lot to you because you don't have any numbers to contextualize it. You're probably trying to do some calculations in your head. So one of the first things I did when I saw this model is I got out my spreadsheet. I started plugging in the numbers because I wanted to see, what does this actually mean? You know, what are the advantages? What can I do with this model? What is the potential? So if you look at my screen, now I put down broker commission. So in this model, explained later on, in this model, you have what's called a cap of 16,000, which means that if a broker makes $80,000, remember that it's an 80-20 split. So if they bring in $80,000, they get to keep $64,000 of that. 16,000 goes into the brokerage, which is shared with people that brought them in and with the company. So if someone brings in $80,000 of commissions a year, they would cap. And a cap means that on the first level here, the first 5 brokers that you bring in, let's say you brought 5 brokers in on the first level, you would get paid over the course of the year, you get paid $2,800 on 5 brokers. That's $14,000. And then it also, though, because you have 5, it opens up the second tier. So let's say those 5 brokers, you help those 5 brokers get 5 other good brokers. Each one of them get 5 good brokers. Now you're going to override on the second tier $80,000 for a total of $94,000 a year. Keep in mind, that's not counting your own production. That's not counting the sales or the commission you're earning from helping buyers buy houses and sellers sell houses. So if you were a capping agent, you'd get $64,000 plus the $94,000. So you'd make $158,000 just by sponsoring 5 brokers and help them sponsor 5 good brokers. Well, you may say, what if they're not good brokers? What if they're just average or below average? Well, I did the numbers based on a half cap. So if they only did $40,000 in commission during the year, their cap, or the amount of commission that you would share, the revenue share for you would be $1,400 on the first level, $1,600 on the second level. That's still $47,000 for just sharing this brokerage model with 5 people who share it with 5 people and join. So let's get a little bit more serious here, right? Instead of 5 people, let's say you were to get 10 people. That's certainly manageable, even if it took you a couple years. So if you sponsored 10 people and help them get 10 people and just carry that down one more level, have this as part of your culture. Hey, when we build a team, we build teams of 10. Everybody comes in. We want to help everybody get 10 people. And then, of course, we'd help them get 10 people. Now, if that just carries 3 levels deep at a cap, if they're capping agents, you would have 40 or 28,000 the first level, 320 on the second level, 2 million on the third level. So your total leveraged income, and I'm going to call this leveraged income, right? Not passive income. Leveraged in that it's not your own personal sales. It's not your own personal time. It's leveraging your time. It's leveraging your skills. It's leveraging your relationships. So when you do that and have capping agents, you'd be 2.3, almost 2.3, little over $2.3 million a year if they were all capping agents. Again, let's say they were only average. On the next screen, I showed it average. It's still 1.1, almost $1.2 million a year just by sharing it with 10 people that share with 10 people. And because of the culture you bring into your team, shared it with 10 more. Okay. So I'm going to now go to one more screen that hopefully it won't scare you because the numbers are tremendous. So Daniel Burnham, who is an architect and helped rebuild Chicago after the Chicago fire, he helped design some of the biggest and beautiful buildings in Chicago, the Chicago skyline. He has a famous quote. It's quite long, but I want to focus on the first part of it. It says, "Make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood." So I want to dream big. I want to instill that in my team to dream big. So I'm going to go for it. I want to open out all levels. I want to open up 40. I want to sponsor 40 brokers so that each one of the 7 levels are tiers that I'm getting paid on. So look at the screen for a second and just dream with me for a minute. And these are not capping agents. These are very average or below average agents. In other words, the agents are only making $40,000 a year. They're not high-powered agents. But if I take it upon myself to work hard, even if it took a couple years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it takes, if I get 40 good agents on my team, and then from there on out, the team only replicates it and doubles at each level. So my 40 don't get 40 like I did, although I want them to. Let's say they only get 2. That turns into 80. And if those 80 only get 2, 160, only get 2, 320, and carries all the way through my 7 levels, if this happened, I would make over $7 million a year in leveraged income. And there'd be a total of, I think that's a total of about 5,000 people on my team. Okay. You may say, well, that will never happen. Well, it's already happened. We actually have a number of agents that have way more than 5,000 people on their team. One person I know has over 9,000 people on their team. There's now over 30,000 agents in EXP. So if you just do the math, and they were totally separate teams, even though teams are building and building and building, but even if they were totally separate, if you do the math, that's 6 people with 5,000 agents right there easily. There's 6 people theoretically, and probably more. I know some people have been in the company, they can name more than 6 people that are making way more than 6 figures every single month. So this is the potential, and this would really, really have me excited, and why I abandoned my plan to start my own brokerage and plug right into a proven brokerage that's been around for years and yet is as lucrative or more lucrative than anything I could possibly imagine or put together. So here kind of shows you the growth in terms of our agents, how, just a few short years ago, 5 years ago, there were only a few thousand agents, and now there's over 30,000 agents. And we're in Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, United States. We're also now opening up and launching India, Mexico, France, Portugal, and South America. How would you like to be at the beginning of, name a big company and you were on the ground floor when that company was first getting started? Facebook, you're one of the first people to get involved in Facebook. Amazon, one of the first people to get involved in Amazon. Think of the potential, and that's exactly what you have with EXP. Okay, I had to pull this off today. I've done a presentation for EXP a couple of weeks ago and a couple of weeks prior to that. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking about their stock being at $20 a share. Then I was on a webinar, and someone from EXP was on the webinar and said, Randy, we just went over $30 a share. I'm like, you're kidding me. That's a 50% increase. It's crazy in just a couple of weeks. So today I pulled off, just went online. What did it close out today? Today it closed at almost $45 a share. Since April, it was like $10 a share in April. It has increased over 400% since April. And our agents that close deals, every time they do their first transaction a year, they get stock. They can buy stock at a discount at closing, like I described, like I did today. This is crazy. It's almost going too fast. I almost want it to slow down. You've got to jump in. If you're going to do this, you want to be now. And when this bubble, when it goes, and all of a sudden it goes to $100 a share, $120 a share, you want to have as many transactions under your belt. You want to own as much stock as possible. Okay, so the name of this presentation, of course, is, how do you start a lucrative business for under $2,000? So I want to just kind of map out of the cost and expense. And this is assuming you're not already a broker. If you're already a broker, obviously this is a lot less expensive. But let's say you're seeing this presentation for the first time. You might not have even thought about being a broker. I have shared this business model with people that already in their mind made up their mind that they did not want to be a broker. They were real estate investors, did not want to be brokers. They saw this business model, and within a day, they're signing up for the classes to become brokers because they see the potential. They see the vision. They see how the model could take over and sweep the country and the world. So let's look at your expenses. I have an average of about $400 on there for pre-licensing classes. So you have to take classes, and I'm not going to go deep in this. We're going to go really deep on this on our follow-up, okay? And we've got a couple people out there that I'd like to just kind of talk and share a little bit about their experiences. So I want to get to them. So just real quick, about $400 for the classes, although I've seen it's as cheap as $199 online. You have to take the state test in Illinois. I believe it's $45, could be more or less in your state. You do have to join an association. In order to be a part of EXP, you have to be a realtor, which means you have to join the Association of Realtors. There's a couple different options, but they're about $600 every 6 months. It should have said on it 6 months. So that's about $100 a month. But let's say $600 to get started. To your 2-year license in the state of Illinois is $125. Your startup, this is all that stuff that I just named. EXP is not getting a dime of that. That's just what you have to do to get your license in the state of Illinois. EXP is only $149 to start, and that includes enough marketing credit for 1,000 business cards. And then a monthly fee for EXP, the cloud, all that cloud-based, and basically to have a virtual office. To have a virtual office, it's only $85 a month. And also, you have a corporate membership to any Regus office in your area. So if you know Regus, it's an office share model. There's one not too far from me, beautiful offices, windows all the way around the conference room, beautiful. You'll have a corporate membership there. And like I said, business cards, I've got $0 down because that's included in your $149. And you'd probably want to get some signs. So if I added all that up, it's only at $1,600 to start in a business. A business with this much potential. I mean, we're not talking about just starting a business where you're selling soap or cookies or whatever. This is a very respected business. It's a licensed business in fields. Not everybody can join it. It's a licensed and very highly regulated field. It's something that has more potential than any other business I have seen in my entire life. And I can say that with all conviction. I've seen so many businesses been brought to me over the years, so many. But if you just start putting the numbers to this business, I estimated it that last year, real estate brokers and agents were paid about $16 billion, that's with a B, $16 billion in commissions. That's the potential of how much money you could be overriding as brokers start joining EXP, and they have joined in waves. You just want to get in early enough so that all those agents are under you. So here is, again, the split, the 80-20 split, cap at 16. I'll go into more on the follow-up. And I'm going to call out some people. Nietzsche, could you come off mute and just, because you're the one that showed me this opportunity. You're the one that brought it to me, so you knew about it before I did. You knew that I was going to start my own business, and you were smart enough to know that what they're doing I probably couldn't replicate. So just share with everybody a little bit about your experience and your background.
Oh, okay, so hi everyone. I don't know if many, my husband and I, we owned a small brick and mortar office, and we owned it since 2011. And when this model was brought to us, we sat down and really thought about this, because just like Randy said, when we did our startup business, we had to pay someone to be a managing broker, because my husband Roland still had not completed his 2 years. Once he completed his 2 years, then he had to go and take a test, and just building the business itself, it it was way over $50,000. I tell people time and time again, we're spending on desks, we're spending on overhead, on lights, on gas. And starting a business, people don't realize that you get to pay much more money just to even turn on the lights. They ask you for a large deposit, right? And so going through everything, just putting up desks, just putting telephones in, that, I mean, it was overwhelming. Thank God at the time I was employed, but we also we brought on a team with us, right? The people that joined our brokerage. And my husband, Roland, was constantly training people that would come in. He not only had to train real estate brokers, but leasing agents, and we would pick up new agents that really needed to be trained, follow them around. And like Randy said, we had to just kind of release some of these clients that we had so they can be profitable, which made us profitable, because there was no way if they would be the solution, right? If they weren't making the money. So many of the times he had to go ahead and give up some of these clients. Eventually, I was also working a full-time job and giving him a hand on Saturdays and Sunday to include running a family. But I also decided at 8 years ago to go ahead and get my real estate license so that I can join him in this adventure, right? So when a group talked to us about EXP, we thought about it and we said we are just as good as the doors that we were opening. When we decided to retire, there was not going to be nothing else. We just closed the doors and move on. But when this model was brought to us, we thought about our retirement. We said, my goodness, this is something that we can leave an inheritance for our family. And it just would build up. But the great thing about it was that we didn't have to close our brick and mortar. We moved it over. And so EXP is actually brokering our model, right? So we're now the name of our organization, but we just don't have the real estate behind our name. EXP is brokering it, training our individuals. Imagine the time and years and years and years that my husband Roland was giving to the agency, just training people. Boy, oh boy, we were so happy to give that up, 50 hours of training. And oh my goodness, we don't even have to be there. They can be at all the training. We just guide them. We're now mentors to all these people that are joining us. And we're constantly grouping, managing, and just growing from there. It's exciting to see where we were. We just joined back in October, and the stock was only between $5 and $7. And so it's amazing the stock that we've earned thus far, because people on our team are actually selling houses. And it's even better yet when I think about it, that the information in the stock is not coming actually from the commission of the agents that are earning, that are working so hard. Is actually coming from the 20% of the company, right? So the company is actually giving me some of that percentage. So I'm constantly closing properties, right? And so I'm being successful, which makes my husband Roland successful, which makes someone else successful. And like Randy said, it's just, we're all successful here. We're building an empire for each other, and it's not costing anyone anything. It's just, we're just working just like we normally would.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for so much for sharing. And one thing I really want to emphasize that she said at the very beginning, Nietzsche said, think about that for a minute. When they got started in the traditional brokerage model, it took them over $60,000 of cash outlay just to go into business. $60,000 for something that's now available with this business model for $1,600. You can be, further ahead even what they are right now at this pace. And they invested all that time, all that money, but now with it plugged into this business model, their business is skyrocketing, and yours will as well. but you don't have to go through that learning curve. You don't have to go through paying $60,000. That's what I was going to do. I was with you. I was going to be right behind you.
Yeah.
Opening up the office. And then plus I was going to build all the infrastructure, try to build the technology, try to build the training and everything. I would have been so overwhelmed. My business never would have grown for the first 5 years. I would have just been putting the infrastructure in place. Now you plug in and day one, you can grow the business, and that's what's lucrative. That's what's profitable, is growing the business, bringing on other agents, training them to close deals and take over market share. You know, think about it. You remember this conversation. Remember watching this, and in 10 years from now, when EXP dominates the market share, when it's EXP and everybody else, you're going to say, you know what? I was on a webinar. I never even heard of that company. I was invited to a webinar. That was when they only had 30 agents. If I only would have got in there, 30 agents, we have 300,000 agents. You know, their goal is to have 1 million agents worldwide. When they open up India, you know, India has 1.3 billion in that country. It's far bigger than the U.S. You know, they have just scratched the surface. So even though the stock is unbelievable growth, it's going to grow even further. But get in quickly. So thanks so much, Nita.
And I just want to say real quick that it took us about 5 years to even start earning some money because we were putting in so much money. So,
yeah, good point. Thank you. Yes, great point. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yes. Sarah, is Sarah still on the line?
Still here.
Oh, you are. Hey, girl.
Hey.
Hi. Just share a little bit about your background, and I know you're very new to EXP, but it'd be a good perspective for someone, you know, listening to a new person.
Okay. So to start off, well, my name's Sarah Chaboki. I'm from Chicago, which is actually where I first started working in real estate, mainly with investors. I decided to up and leave and move to Clearwater Beach, not really knowing anybody and still planning on working in real estate, which sounds pretty crazy. So I settled for one of these big name international brokerages with an office a couple blocks away from my condo. And after a few months, I was just so unhappy. I decided to reach out to Randy to see if he opened up his brokerage yet. And that's when he told me about EXP. It didn't take me too long it took me maybe a few days to switch over, and it's been amazing since. At the end of the day, the business model is undeniable. Our stocks are soaring, and the potential for growth is incredible. There's truly no cap. So regardless of what your current situation is or involvement in real estate is, if you're an agent, a broker, there's something for you, even if you're just looking for somewhere to start. And with $2,000 being, you know, a starting point, there aren't very many, if any, businesses that you can start with that amount of money, and to be able to grow that exponentially is, like I said, unbelievable. So you have to look into some aspect of it. There's just so much revenue, so many sources. We really are building an empire. And yeah, that little EXP world that we live in, I'm looking forward to making that, you know, the real world.
Yeah. Well, great. Thanks so much. That's such a great perspective. And think about this. So Sarah, and we've known each other since when she lived in Chicago. She's down in Florida. In any other business model, in order for Sarah and I to work together, I would have to get my broker's license in Florida, get my management broker's license in Florida, then bring Sarah on my team, having all of that overhead that Nietzsche just talked about. Instead, we have a conversation together. She joined the team. She's got support because we've got people at our team from down there. She's getting support down there. She's not down there alone. She's getting support. And I didn't have to open up an office down there. And now I've got this big incentive to help her to become successful. They have a huge business down in Florida. And just think of other business models or the traditional business model, that would have been impossible for me at this point. Just starting in business, and all of a sudden I'm going to open up another office in Florida. It just would never happen.
Right.
So, I mean, this is just such a great business model. And I want everybody listening to this, just think about the potential. Who do you know in other states? right now, just starting a few months, I have someone getting their license in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'll have building a team down there. Sarah's in Clearwater, Florida. I have a broker moving to Tennessee, so I'll have someone there. Someone else is on my team already has somebody getting their license in Virginia. So we'll have somebody there. I have somebody in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So, and then Illinois. That's 6 states. I mean, it would have taken me 10 years to open up 6 offices in 6 states. I mean, if at all. So really look at this. The model is, it puts you on the fast track. So,
and if I may, Randy, with a model like that, you have this one agent here, one agent there. With a model like EXP has, it's gonna take no time for these agents to realize the growth potential that they have in building their own teams. So this isn't going to be a one-man team in any of these spots. I myself am currently working on bringing a few agents on board. So, you know, there's a lot more growth potential there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm planning on big teams and all of them, and it'll all be tax deductible when I come visit everybody too. So,
Hey.
all right. Thanks so much. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. I just can't imagine another business with this much upside. I mean, I've been a real estate investor. I've seen some really big real estate deals, but the consistency that this model offers is incredible. And you got your cake and eat it too, as the expression goes, because not only are you a business for yourself, you're actually getting ownership of a large corporation. So it's like being a corporate American, that you're getting ownership of a large corporation, but yet you're in business for yourself, and you can build just an extraordinary income. So, all right, everyone, thanks so much for spending the time with me. I wish you the best. May God bless you and your family. All right.